Got a team full of outcasts, dreamers and believers. People told us quit, now we turning into leaders. Thought they were broken, thought they didn't fit. Now they building businesses and they impacting every bit. Not because of hustle, not because of grind. Because identity got healed and renewed in mind. Romans 12, living transformation every day. Stop conforming to the pattern, watch the old fall away. Teaching leadership, not just making sales. Helping people hear God's voice when the counterfeit fails. It got me moving, lean got me lighter. And the guys, it got me focused, now my future looking brighter. Focus when I'm studying, restored when I sleep.
Hey, welcome back to Breaking the Pattern. I'm Joshua and this is Jerry Lee. And today we're going to be walking through a little bit more of our story and kind of what happened after we got married. Some of the things that we walked through, the issues that we walked through that basically helped define or showed us who we were before time began and who God created us to be. And we didn't quite understand that at the time, but it was definitely a difficult part, which there were a lot of difficult parts. But this one in particular, a lot of people deal with, and a lot of times in the moment, we don't know how to handle it. And I can say, like, still today, it still occasionally strikes us as hard and creates moments of frustration. But fortunately, we have a God who is bigger than all that, and he continues to show us grace and shows us what to do with it. So let's talk about infertility and what that played in our life. And so we left off last time with we got engaged right after you got out of high school. And
And I remember one, you may not remember this, but I do. We were sitting at my mom's house in the back living room, and we were sitting on a couch she had back there, and um, we were talking about how many kids we wanted to have. You remember that? No. And we had both mutually agreed 4, and we were like, we'll have biological kids first, and then we'll adopt after that.
okay, I remember that.
Okay. And so we had a cute plan. That was our cute little plan, because I had always wanted to be a mom, and um like it's just what I wanted to do. And I just had a burning desire in me to be pregnant and to experience pregnancy and to have kids, and to be a stay-at-home mom and homemaker and stay-at-home wife. That was my dream. And it definitely broke the pattern back then, because when people ask you, what do you want to do? I want to be a mom. I want to be a homemaker. I want to stay at home. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And um, it was definitely not the popular opinion back then.
No,
So,
I mean, that was the time when it was like, okay, you know, girls, you need to go to college. You don't need to get a man. You don't need to worry about that. You need to go to school and get a degree and go find a good job and be self-reliable and self-dependent. Man, I don't like at the time I was like, I don't want to, I want to work. Like, I want to go find something to do. And I wanted to be a father, but at the time I was like, I don't want to be a stay at home father. Like, that's a lot of work. I watched how much my mom did at the house and took care of everything. And I was like, I don't want to do this. You can see that now. Like, I push against.
yeah.
So it was a big deal. So we got married December of the same year that we got engaged. So 6 months after we got engaged. And we, like Julie talked about last time, we got our first kid was a dog,
Mater.
and we adopted him.
Don't you adopt every dog?
I guess so.
You don't give birth to dogs. But we did get him from a shelter.
We
It's
got him
not
from a shelter,
it's not like
and
we
you
got
have
him
to
from
adopt him from a
That's
shelter.
true. That's true. It's not like we got him from a litter. Like
We didn't go find somebody
a
that
breeder.
was, yeah.
Oh gosh.
So he became our first kid
Mhm.
and we lived in the same house up on the hill in the mountain for 4 months, and through that process, God
This is
was
the house that the truck ran into.
the
We
truck
talked
ran
about that
into.
in the last episode.
Yep, and we asked for a sign, the truck hit the house right when we got done praying that,
Mhm.
so we packed up and moved
Mhm.
and came to
But
Texas.
in while we were still at that house, we had been married obviously only a month or so, and, and I remember one morning getting up and, um, wanting to take a pregnancy test. And, um, just because I mean, like, we had only been married a month, and I was like but being naive, I was like, "Well, considering we've never done anything intimately before, now we have, I mean, I very well could be pregnant," because that's what you were taught was there's always a chance. And so, I was like, "Okay, maybe I am." And, I had a lot of medical issues. I had, polycystic ovaries and, PCOS, and, um, since really I started my period, so that was I had always had those issues, but I never really understood what they were, or what the effects could be of that. So anyway, I wanted to take a pregnancy test because I was like, maybe I'm pregnant. But I was like, we were only pregnant. I mean, we were only married a month. And so we'd only been sexually active a month. And so I was like, well, it could be. And I remember being like cautiously excited, but also like, we've only been married a month. So it was at that point that I experienced the first disappointment. And I remember that day very, very what's the word I'm looking for?
Vividly.
Vividly, thanks. And, the disappointment was so real. But I kinda needed a reality check because I was like, "We've only been married a month. We don't need a baby right now. Like, we need to work on our marriage. We need to be married." And I think looking back, I regret focusing so much on trying to get pregnant that we missed out on being married. And so, the
Mm,
once that was negative, I was like, "Okay, you know, it's okay. It's alright." And then after that, it wasn't long after that that we moved. Then what was that? April
yeah, April, yeah,
and of '07, and so we got moved into our first little duplex. We moved into the
that's right.
duplex first, yeah. After about a month or 2, we got our next
Our second kid,
little
a
Kansas.
dog.
Mhm. And we adopted that one too.
We adopted that one too.
So, yeah.
I also
Do
kind
you
of
remember that first
yeah,
pregnancy test?
a little bit. And I look back now also thinking, I wish we would have focused on our marriage also, more
Mhm.
than focused on, are we gonna have kids and ministry?
Yeah.
Like, it was, what do we do next? How do we serve next? For several years,
Mhm.
it was involved in, are we gonna get pregnant and where are we gonna serve? And it wasn't so much about bonding and connecting, even though, let's put this into perspective. We took literal that husband and wife become one and leave their father and mother, and we literally left family on both sides. So my family was still six hours southeast of DFW, and her family was 10 hours west. And so we literally took that and tried to just, me and her, let's make this work. And again, we were walking in what we were taught all our life is, you're just going to have to make it work and you're just going to have to stick it out. It doesn't matter how hard it gets. These are the boxes you need to check and follow through with to make it work. And so it was pretty difficult. Even in that duplex, just walking through how to be intimate and how to connect and how to have a relationship and live together because I had been out on my own up to that point for several years. Um, I had had roommates and stuff like that. I had been known as the guy on the couch for a while where I had a place to live my last year in college, but I would still crash at people's houses. And so I knew how to like survive and take care of myself. And I had my own patterns that I had created and how to function. And Lee was still living at home. And then up in 6 months after she graduates, we're married and now she moves in with me. And so she is trying to learn how this is all going to work and her vision of what she saw being a wife look like and me being a husband look like. And that all kind of hit
Clashed.
and
Yeah.
clashed as it does with most, right? And so we had to figure out how to make all of it function like gears coming together and fitting the right key and it was quite an interesting time. And I remember trying to be, you know, plan these romantic things and I would plan these things when she would come back from church on Sunday nights and plan these romantic evenings thinking that this is what I'm supposed to do.
And I still didn't know how to accept them. I had no idea.
And I just remember being looked at like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I thought I was being sweet."
And he was. He absolutely was. It was I just didn't know how to accept it.
And I was
So,
winging it.
yeah.
I mean, I was doing this based on my previous relationships too,
And probably what the
and
world
what the
was telling
world
you.
is, "Hey, you need to do this." Because we didn't understand how to talk to God and listen to God.
Mhm.
We understood how to talk to him, talk at him, but we didn't understand how to listen to him.
Mhm.
And so I just formed it based on everything around me.
Yep. Yep.
So that carried over into us still working to get pregnant
Mhm.
and trying to do all the things and figure out why we couldn't.
And I remember going to the doctor once we got to Fort Worth and we got settled in Fort Worth, and that's when I went to the doctor. And I went to my appointment that day, and I remember these details so vividly. Like, they're just so clear in my mind because they are defining moments of when specific things, milestones happened. And this one specifically was the day I found out you will never have biological kids. And if you want to, it's going to be very difficult for you. And you're going to have to do IVF and all the things. And so what did I do? I believed it. And I was like, yep, that's it. We're done. We can't have kids. Had I known what we know now, I could have walked out of that appointment differently, but I didn't. And I was still naive and immature and listened to the doctor, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with listening to the doctor, but had I had a better relationship with Jesus at that time and a more intimate relationship with him, I could have walked out of that appointment and been like, okay, that's what the doctor said. Now, God, what do you say? What do you say about this? Is this what you want for us? Or is this just what they're telling me? Um, because he could have flipped that narrative, I believe.
He absolutely could have. Like,
And yeah,
knowing what we know now and walking in the power of the Holy Spirit, like what we've seen now and experienced, could say I wish we would have known that then, but we wouldn't be who we are now
today. Yeah.
without having walked through that.
Yeah. And, I hear stories of people who've gone through what I've gone through and ended up getting pregnant. And then there's people who never get pregnant, just like I couldn't. And so I know it's different for everybody. I left the appointment defeated, completely defeated, and so hurt. That hurt was so deep. And I stuffed it down because I was like, don't don't talk about it. Don't show a lot of emotion about it. It's fine. Just hide your feelings and move on with it. and
Mm.
just speak what happened and move on. But deep down, it hurt so bad because one of the I wanted to be married. I wanted to be married to a man in the ministry, and the Lord had given me that gift. And, here we are. We just moved and had our 2 dogs, and, we just had it. And now the other part of my dream and desire was to have kids, and that just got shut down. And so it was a really, really deep hurt. But
Mm.
so I kept going back and forth to the doctor and stuff. And that's when I learned that I had PCOS, and so we talked to a doctor one time. I talked to him about fertility stuff, and we did some injections and stuff, but there was never a real peace about it because one, we couldn't afford it. Two, we didn't have insurance. We probably didn't even have insurance, to be real honest. Um
Yeah, we did.
well, you did. You worked at Silver Creek. I was thinking that was at
Yeah.
the school, but no. So we did, but insurance definitely didn't cover that. So we just were like, well, oh well,
Yeah.
you know?
And I, as the husband, you know, I wasn't serving in the ministry at the time as far as a full-time position at a church, but I was also trying to walk through, like, I didn't know how to support her. I didn't know how to support what was going on, and I didn't know how to process this either. And so the way she was taught was exactly what she described. Don't show emotion, don't show feelings, stuff it down, say it out loud and just move on. And which is unhealthy completely. But then the way I was taught was you need to be strong and you just need to the same thing with me like that I hear and what I do is I just cinch up my belt, pull up my boots and I just deal with it. But I didn't know how to support her except say I'm here and I don't know. And so there was a lot of emotional stuff. I remember like there was a part of you thinking that I didn't care.
Or that you didn't really want to have kids.
Yeah, and what I was trying to do was like I think in the time was I was trying to be like it's okay. Like I'm not upset. Did I want kids? Yes, but I didn't want her to feel like it was her fault that we didn't have kids. And so I was trying to figure out how to convey that, and we weren't very good at communication yet. And so, a couple of years in, we end up moving again. And I had started working with her. We worked at the same place for a while.
Yeah, I trained you.
So when we moved to Fort Worth, this is a side note to get us to where we're going. When we moved to Fort Worth, I called some friends of mine. They still live in the DFW area, great people. I said, I need a job. We're moving to Fort Worth. And they were like, great. My wife works at this facility. They're looking for operators. You can operate equipment. I mean, you ran tractors, right? I'm like, well, yeah. And so I call and I interview while I'm still living in New Mexico. I tell him I'm moving. He hires me over the phone. And because of my friend's wife that worked there. And Jerry Lee gets hired over the phone to go work in the retail office of this facility. It was a composting and recycling facility. And I become an operator on a track loader. And she goes and works in the retail office and does amazing, organizes everything. They love her, love her. And I ended up like I liked my job, but I was hurting all the time because I would bounce on that machine and I had back problems from a car accident. And so I was like, I went to school. I paid for my, I helped try to put myself through college. Yes, I had some loans, but I was like, "I didn't do all that to be an operator for the rest of my life on this piece of equipment doing this."
Not that that was a bad start,
No.
but
Gosh, we made
there
good
had to.
friends,
Yeah,
connections.
there had to be more.
I learned a lot of Spanish there. I worked
That
with
is true.
I call them my people because I love that culture and I love the Mexican people, and they became my friends, and I showed them that I was a white guy that would outwork them, and they would tell me to slow down, and I was like, "Nope, you can't outwork me. Mm-mm, you won't outwork me." And, so that was a good time. But then I told the president or the CEO of the company, I was like, "Hey," I said, "I'm leaving." I said, I'm not gonna keep operating a piece of equipment here. I loved it. I love you guys, but I can't do this." And they started to try to send me out the door. And through this whole process, we were walking through trying to connect with each other, trying to grow with each other, and deal with infertility at the same time.
Mhm,
And she wanted to go work at a preschool. And so, which would be a pay cut to go work at a preschool.
mhm.
And
Because deep down, I wanted to be home.
yeah,
I wanted to stay home, and so they tried to offer me they were like, "Hey, you could stay home, like, you could, get off early and not work on this day," and, so they tried to weasel it around, and there just was still something in me that I was like, "This is still not it. This is not where I'm supposed to be," and so then they offered you a job
yeah.
to come into the
They
office.
tried to, they gave me a letter recommendation to go to Holt Cat. And they went to send it and they went, "Whoa, what are we doing? We don't need to do this." And offered for me to come in and be trained by her. So now I'm walking into a position being trained by my wife, which was awesome. It was incredible.
It was humbling for
It was
you,
humbling for me.
horribly humbling.
And so
Really tested our marriage
it
is what
did,
it did. It really did.
but it was great.
But it was fine. Yeah, it was good. It ended up being really good. So I got him trained and then he just exploded. And from that point on, he just kept growing and growing and growing up the ladder in the company. And until you were,
Within the year, I took over the accounts receivable department and then took over the retail office also and managed, all of it.
yeah, I went to work at a preschool and loved it, but it still wasn't. I got to experience lice for the first time in my
It was
life.
awful. We
That
were
was
in that duplex and she comes home with lice from the
There was a little
preschoolers.
girl. I knew this child had lice, and I said, "Child has lice." "No, no, no, no. Child has lice." "No." And I'm like, "This child has got to go home. Please take the child home. She has lice." And they were like, "I don't know." So she got to stay at school, probably I think she got to come back the next day. The next day, I called in, I was like, "I'm not gonna be there because I have lice. Thank you very much." "Oh gosh, okay."
So
So,
then I got lice. We both
yeah,
got lice.
that's right. It was terrible.
So we were, like, buying all these lice
Oh my
kits
gosh, it
and
was
trying to
terrible.
figure out how to use them and
Awful. Anyway, so, that finally came to an end. We moved to, Fort Worth. I'm sorry, got a job in Temple.
So I worked at this place, just felt like I'd made it. She was at the preschool, and then we get a call from the former mentor and pastor from New Mexico, and he had moved to Central Texas. And mind you, we are still we're still only we're a couple of years in and dealing with why can't we get pregnant? And they said, "Well, you move down to Central Texas and become the youth pastor." And my initial response was, "No, absolutely not." Because we were good where we were. I was like, "No, we're growing, we're involved in a church, we're enjoying it, we're serving, we're volunteering. Great. It's great. We love it." It became like our home church or whatever. And the people that I worked with, I like, all this kind of stuff. And we drive down and visit with them, and it was overwhelming that we were supposed to be there. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I knew God was telling me to go. And so we go and lose insurance. So now the whole infertility options and trying to become pregnant through medical assistance was definitely put on hold.
Yeah,
And
that's when I went to the doctor again
mhm,
down there because it was at, Scott& and White.
yep. And we knew at that point, like, we definitely couldn't do anything
Mhm.
medically because we had no insurance
Yep.
and definitely no money.
Mhm.
So went from making pretty good money at the time, that many years ago, to nothing.
Nothing.
And that whole story we can talk about later. We ended up back in Fort Worth a couple of years after that, and we can come back to that story in a different podcast. But the infertility story continued. We got back to Fort Worth, um, and actually this time we were living in kind of northern Fort Worth area, and attending another church up there, and continued the infertility thing.
And you went back to work at Silver Creek, the place he was at before. And like he said, we can go into that again later. But when we moved back, it was in 2011. And I did not go back to work. He took the job and
We had one vehicle.
yeah. And so we just agreed to stay at home. And so that was a sacrifice because we went from two incomes to one income, which the two incomes were nothing.
Were nothing compared to the one income when I came
Yeah.
back.
So we were okay, being on one income. It was still, we still had to be careful, but it was okay. So through that time we started going to this church, North Side, and no, I'm sorry, North Fort Worth Baptist. And we kind of told our story a little bit to some people. And then this sweet little lady was like, "Oh, that sounds a lot like my story. I couldn't have biological kids either. Have you guys ever thought about fostering or foster to adopt?" She said foster to adopt. And I was like, no, not really. And so she kind of left it alone. And later she came back. She's like, "I really want to tell you my story. Have you guys, like, you should at least consider it." And she said, "I went through an agency, and that agency is Buckner. And you guys should at least look into it." And I was like, "Yeah. Okay." So we kind of talked about it, and we said we'll go to an informational meeting.
Yeah.
And we're like, what's it gonna hurt, And we went to that meeting that night, and we both knew at that point that that is exactly what we were supposed to do. We had no idea what we were getting into.
So at the time, we were also living in a house that we were allowed to live in. We did some remodel work to it. They were friends of ours, like true friends of ours from Central Texas, that allowed us to live there. And there was an extra room in the house. And so through the process, we were asking God, like, what can we do with this extra room to bless somebody? How can we use this? And, again, it's part of our story. Like, we were learning how to talk to God still. And then we went to this informational meeting about foster
Yeah,
care.
that's true.
And I was like, this hits everything. We get to bless a child. We get to pour into a child, help them, do whatever. And it gives a purpose for this room that we had,
And we get to be parents.
and we get to be parents of some form or fashion.
Yeah, it wasn't what we had
No.
expected. So we followed through with it. We started the training, all of the things, and started collecting baby items, and that was exciting. But we just kept wondering, like, what is this going to look like? And um,
And I'll tell you that it's very different, like fostering and adoption. than having a biological, obviously. But from the perspective of this was something I think we struggled with, and I know you did. I know I did separately at the time, but baby showers.
Oh, yeah.
Like when someone gets pregnant before they have a kid, there's a baby shower. And that's not real common with foster care
Yeah.
or adoption. Even though you're fixing to have a child placed in your home, brand new to you. And so I think for me, that was a struggle because I remember Silver Creek at the time, like they kind of threw a baby shower.
They did, and, the our life group ended up
Yeah,
doing one too, and, so that right there was stepping out of a pattern, and we were kind of the, guinea pigs in that in our world because nobody had ever really done
right.
that. So, it looked new and different, and, but it was awesome. It was such a blessing. I still remember some of the items that we got from that baby shower and those baby showers, and we still have some of them. So super, super neat, such a blessing. So the Lord was very gracious to us in giving us some of those things that we could have had with the pregnancy, but never could. We had comments many times through the process of, well, once you foster and adopt, then you'll get pregnant. And I completely understood the motive behind it and what's the,
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to be encouraging
yeah.
and optimistic.
But yes, I understood the optimism there.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But the further we got into our marriage, the more I realized it's literally not happening. And we are not doing anything to stop it. So and so those comments were hard to accept, and I was like, "Well, yeah, maybe we'll see," but we just kept our eyes kind of focused on fostering, and then we finally got licensed, and that was in September of 2011, and, that was also the month that we found out my dad had died. And so, due to the circumstances of how he died and what his death looked like, we could not announce his death in the newspaper because they had to identify the body, and so we decided to go through with the funeral even though it was frowned upon by, the city and everything. We went through with it, and we went up there to have the funeral in September, and while we were there, we found out we were licensed as foster parents, and they said, "So you're licensed, and we have 2 babies for you." And we were like, "Ah, what do we do? I guess this is how it works. I guess we say yes." And, so they said, "Yeah, one is 4 months old and one is 9 months old, and they're both boys. And, one is black and one's white." And we were like, "Okay, we'll be home tomorrow." And, so we were trying to, like, figure out what is this gonna look like taking in 2 babies, coming off of my dad's funeral. So, and I don't talk about my dad's funeral lightly, and that's a whole different story, but it was just the timing. That's when it
Like
happened.
I just remember being in shock. Like, first of all, dealing with shock that while we were in New Mexico, the reason for that, and then in shock that while we're there, we get a call that we need to go back because we're getting placements. And I was like, "What?"
I know. It's crazy. So, on the way back, we're kinda getting pictures from the foster parents of the babies, and, um, so we're excited, and, um, we the next day we go to pick them up, and we find out that we're only getting 1, and we're only getting the 4-month-old. And we didn't really understand at the time exactly why, and they weren't completely clear, but I knew from comments that were made from the foster mom and that the white boy was going to definitely be up for adoption. There was no question. and he was a big boy. He was a really big boy, and not that there's reasoning for saying that. But anyway, the other one was a little black boy, and he was a preemie. He was very tiny for his age, and the reasoning was she couldn't take care of the little one because she had just had abdominal surgery. And so she wasn't able to care for a 4-month-old. So taking care of the 9-month-old, who was bigger and more active, was that was doable. It really wasn't adding up for us at the time, but I was like, you know what? You do you. And if you can't take on the 4-month-old, we absolutely will. So we did. And y'all, we loved this little boy like, well, he was our first true baby. And so they told us from the beginning, you guys need to look long term with him. Like, focus on long term. Think about adoption. It's not 100% guaranteed. It never is with foster care, ever. But
Because the goal is reunification.
mhm, absolutely. And family can come out of nowhere, and that's okay. Because you have to put yourself in their position too. If I had a niece or nephew that was put in foster care and I didn't know about it until the case was closing, and then I found out, hey, you have a niece that came into foster care and we're looking for family. We have not been able to find any, but they're about to be put up for adoption. Do you guys want it? I mean, my reaction would be, "Oh my gosh." I mean, almost always it's yes. If I would have known, I would have taken them sooner. So you try to put yourself in the family's position, but then you put yourself in the foster parent's position, and it's very, very difficult to love on a child for a year and a half, a year, and then be ready to adopt them, and then this family member comes out of nowhere and you're supposed to be okay with letting this child go to that family. So it's a very sensitive, hot topic, and it's very difficult. So this little guy, we called him D. We had a lot of nicknames for the little guy, but he was with us for 8 months. And they said, you guys are going to adopt him, and there's no family, and we're going to be terminating mom's rights. So we had a really good relationship with mom. She was not doing things she was supposed to, but we had a really good relationship with her. She was very sweet. And so we went to termination, and we went to court for termination, and they did terminate her rights. And she came up to us afterwards and she hugged us, and she's like, I want you guys to keep him. And we, of course, said, absolutely. And at that very moment is when we also found out that an aunt came into the picture. And we found out she'd been there the whole time, but the caseworkers weren't completely honest with us about that. And so it was not the family's fault. We believe that we were lied to by the caseworker through CPS. And they had said, yeah, she's been here the whole time. She was just waiting on termination. So he turned a year old in May, and we had to let him go. And they allowed us to get his first haircut with him. Getting their haircut before 1 is not really looked highly upon. So we waited until after he was 1, and we were able to get his first haircut, and we got to spend his first birthday with him. So that was a blessing. That was a gift that they gave us. But that was another very defining moment of our parenting journey, because that literally broke us.
Yeah. So we were, already walking through infertility and not being able to have biological kids, and still walking that at the same time as we were fostering and looking to adopt this little boy that we were told we were going to adopt. And I had shared some of this on a video that I had made months ago, but that was like the infertility struggle that we were working through. It's like it came to life with an actual baby in front of us saying, "This is what you could have. Nope, you can't have it." And, like, the aunt, she's super nice, great, like, again, it was just a situation that unfortunately, like, people are people, and, it doesn't matter what agency or what government entity or whatever they work for, people are people, and if they don't walk in, above board and high standards, and you deal with situations like this. And so it built us up to think just like we thought when we got married, we're gonna have kids. We're built up, built up, built up. The same concept. We thought we were gonna keep this little boy, and just like that, it was over.
And we're not against reunification.
Yeah.
And a lot of foster parents get really dogged and have dirt thrown on them, for lack of better words, because they're like, you just don't want them to go back to family. You just want to keep them. Well, absolutely. I mean, look at the situation they're in. They shouldn't even be in foster care, for one. So we're here to help take care of those kids. They shouldn't even be in foster care.
Yeah.
So, of course, we want to keep them and give them a safe home for the rest of their life. Absolutely. Now, are we okay with them going to their biological family if it's safe? Absolutely. But we're not out to steal kids. We're not out to tear up families. We're out to do what's best for the kids. And so we were told we would get to keep him and adopt him. And so that's what we believed. And from that point on, we put a guard up. Every time we took in another kiddo, we put a guard up and we really, really guarded ourselves. After he left, I remember us filling up the crib with stuff
Yep.
just to have it not be empty.
And we still had a little boy with us,
Hmm.
and we knew that little boy was going back to mom. So we did not connect with him on the level that we connected with our first placement. And then from that point
Because it
forward,
was a different connection, knowing that he would
yeah,
it was more of a aunt-uncle
yeah,
type
we
connection.
were just, let's just take care of him, provide for his needs, show him that he's loved, and
Mhm.
you know, it was not, "I'm gonna be your forever home" kinda situation. And so from that point forward, though, that's how we treated basically every child that came through that door, even if we were told there might be an option to adopt. And they have to ask that question basically every placement. If they come up for adoption, are you willing to adopt? And we're like, yes, yes. At the same time, walking through foster to adopt program, like she said, there are no guarantees that you're going to adopt a child, period. And even with adoption, there's still no guarantees.
Mhm.
So people that walk through straight adoption, they can go through all the way to the end of the process and something stops it from happening. And so if you can imagine, it's similar to your body and your brain is talking and it's telling you like this is real, this is going to happen. And so your entire being is accepting this child that you're going to get or that you already have as your own. And it's as if you bonded with that child inside you because your entire body is now bonded with that child. And so when that's stripped away, your body reacts the same way and your brain reacts the same way. That a part of you was stripped and is gone forever. And so that's what happened on the first placement.
Mhm.
And remember, there was a lot of anger and emotion in that home. And
So much hurt.
there were some people that looked from the outside in that were just like, they didn't understand. Well, you knew this could happen. Those are the comments that we would get from people, even some family. Well, you knew this could happen. Well, I don't understand why this is so hard. Like you signed up for this. You knew this was part of the deal. And I'm like, well, you don't walk up to somebody who had a miscarriage and you don't walk up to them and say, well, you knew this was a possibility. You signed up to get pregnant. You knew this could happen. You don't do that. And so all of that filtering in also at the same time, now looking at it going, that was the enemy using those people to speak junk and crap over us to make us become separated focus. Like we're going to push people away because we can't trust people because of how they treated us when we walked through that stuff
Yeah.
and didn't understand when we would even confess the struggles that we were dealing with certain kids that we had. We literally got looked at like we were nuts. Like, well, I don't understand why you why are you struggling with it like that? You literally signed up for this. I'm like, that doesn't mean that emotions aren't real
And it doesn't hurt.
and it doesn't hurt when a child that you're trying to care for treats you that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the infertility thing continued.
And it just kept stabbing. And I remember one day we had bought a swing, and it was a jungle themed swing. It was green, and you remember it?
Mhm.
Mhm. And I remember sitting on the couch looking at that swing and asking the Lord to fill the swing. Will you fill the swing? And he did. He did fill the swing. He filled it with our first little guy, our second little guy. Pretty sure our second little guy probably broke the swing.
So we got another swing.
I guarantee you he broke it. He was a sensory guy, and he was a big boy, and he liked the swing, and so we let him sit in the swing, and, when he was way beyond the poundage, eh, sweet little buddy. Anyway, he had such a hard time sometimes with breathing, and he was congested, and, he would sleep in the swing. He would fall asleep. We would make sure he was buckled, all the things, but, it's funny, I only remember one other child after that being in that swing,
Mm.
and, it was the little bitty,
Yep.
but she was also there at the same time he was, I think, yeah, they kinda overlapped a little
Yeah.
bit, and, but after that, I don't remember that swing, so I'm sure that he ended the era of the green jungle swing. But anyway, the Lord filled the swing.
Multiple times.
He did, and it was never filled with a child that we were able to keep. And so, we asked the Lord for something. We asked the Lord to do something, and He may answer in a way that you didn't expect. And I was asking for Him to fill the swing, but deep down, I hadn't fully confessed, Jesus, I want, well, I had confessed to Him multiple times that I wanted a forever child, but I was like, I want you to fill that swing, but I should have fully confessed, I want a child that will stay forever. And I'm not saying because I didn't confess that he didn't give it to us. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, I wish I would have been more fully honest with him because he could have handled it. He could have handled where my feelings, where my emotions were, and where my desires were. He could handle it, and I was honest with him some. I mean, some, but not to the full extent of what I could have been. And but I do remember very specifically asking, please put a baby in that swing, and he did multiple times. And so, yeah, then the green swing came to an end, and kids came in and out of our home, and, you know, so many different situations and so many different dynamics and ages and, genders and all, it's just was a revolving door for a long time, overlapping kids, and the most kids we ever had at one time was 3, but, we'd have anywhere from 1 to 3 kids at a time in our house and sibling groups and stuff, so then we had one more little girl that we just kept for a few weeks, until she could go home as well, and then after that, we took a break over Christmas.
Yeah. We were tired, worn out, frustrated,
Drained.
drained. still not understanding fully, like, why can't we heard about other families that were adopting, and they had just started their journey, and then they were getting to adopt, and then families that had adopted that started having kids and
biologically.
biological kids, and we're just like, I was done.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't wanna do this anymore. There was a part of me that was like, I just don't wanna do this. And so I decided that, over the Christmas break, like, we were gonna go visit family. It was just the 2 of us, and we drove up to Lubbock. I think the company, Silver Creek, also gave us some assistance to go do something extra. And
Maybe
I told him, like, "Well, we're going to visit family." And he was like, "Well, I know Lubbock's not that, destination, but, you know, we
it'll be
can
something.
we can hook you up at a hotel." And so he covered the hotel for us and everything, and we had a nice dinner because our
Anniversary.
anniversary was also, over that time.
Mhm.
And so we get to stay in a hotel over the Christmas break before we go visit family, and before we had gone, we got a phone call about a couple of kids that were coming available. They
And
were
they were in
in another
another
foster
foster
home,
home.
and my initial response, again, no. Apparently, I'm Captain No in a lot of areas, but
You
my
still wear that captain hat.
my initial response was no. Like, we are on a break. I'm taking a break. I don't want any more kids right now in the house. We're not doing it.
And
And then we left to go to Lubbock
mhm.
and go visit family.
I was torn because I knew we needed a break, and we were gonna get a break because they weren't gonna have to come to us until, a few weeks later, and so I appreciated his no, but I also was like, "But why not?" Like, we're gonna keep going with foster care anyway, so we might as well just take in these 2 kids and just keep going. And
And I think if we're honest, like, I didn't want to do it anymore.
yeah.
I just wasn't willing to say that then
Mhm.
because I didn't see another way for us to have kids.
'Cause we had been told no so many times. And it just you can only get hit so many times before you literally cannot take it again. And looking back, I sometimes feel like I pushed it too hard, and I felt very guilty for saying yes. Sometimes I wish I would have been more respectful of his no. But I was very determined at the time that we were supposed to take them. But I really wish that we would have been better communicators. But
You were pressed for a reason to take them.
yeah.
And I mean, looking back at it, like, I know I was living out of, like, throwing my hands in the air.
Mhm.
I didn't want to keep playing the game, because that's what I was thinking at the time, just because we were so tired.
But I was living out of desperation
Yeah,
because I was so desperate for a child
right.
that I was like, "Yes, here's another opportunity for, you know, maybe another kiddo um and maybe not having my focus correct with, are you bringing them in to have forever kids, or are you bringing them in to truly help them?" Um, we were living in such deep hurt that we were both not walking in our identities. We didn't even know our identities then, and so of course we're not walking in them. Um,
And granted, just a year and a half, 2 years earlier, we just came out of a situation where we were hurt before we ever started foster care by people ripping us up, and
oh,
so
at a church, yeah.
we're still processing that while fostering kids,
Mhm,
just trying to, "I got this. I'm gonna make it happen."
mhm. Yeah, so, we deal with a lot of feelings and a lot of, "I wish we would have. Why didn't we?" You know, I think we can all do that. Um, but that was the start to our adoption road. Um, those were the 2 kiddos that we ended up taking them in. Um, they told us from the beginning that we would not keep them.
Right.
They said, they are going home."
And so that was clear up front.
Yes,
That was
so we
very clear.
appreciated that.
Yep.
However, we knew that up front, and so we parented like that was up front.
Right.
And because we knew, we were like, "Okay, we are aunt and uncle again," in a sense, and so we dealt with a very difficult situation with the birth family, and so they made it very difficult.
Yeah.
And we got them day 1, and then, day 2, our little guy was hospitalized. He came from another foster home, but he came to us with a very, very swollen belly and very severe diarrhea and occasionally threw
Oh,
up.
no.
And so I remember having to hand off the baby, the little girl, she was 8 months old, hand her off to another foster home for respite. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, we just got these kids. Now I'm having to already find respite care for her. So she has to go stay with somebody else overnight because we can't take care of both of them, one being in the hospital." And. So I remember walking into the hospital with him, and they saw him, and I told them what was going on, and they found out I was a foster parent, and they flagged him for internal bleeding due to abuse. They saw me as the abuser, and so they cut me off from him, and they took him back and wouldn't let me see him, kind of pushed me off to the side because they thought he was bleeding internally. And they took him in the trauma room and, swarmed him and did all the testing and everything. And once they realized it was not internal bleeding from abuse from somebody who just met the child, they let me back in the room, and come to find out he had severe allergies to food that nobody was really taking care of. So,
Because of malnutrition,
mhm.
all the lactase in his body had been wiped out, so he couldn't handle
He couldn't handle
dairy
dairy,
and
gluten.
gluten.
So, dealt with that with him. And then the little girl had cranial issues. So she had to have cranial reconstruction in February. We got them in January. She had that in February. So huge, huge issues from 2 kiddos that they said in the beginning, these are normal kids, no issues whatsoever. The little girl might need an MRI, but they're completely,
Except the foster parents were like, "He won't stop crying, and he doesn't eat well, and he's picky,
he
and he
screams.
screams all the time," and like,
And
because he was sick
yeah.
and you did nothing. So you can imagine, like, my anger level was off the charts,
Hmm.
just off the charts. I was already frustrated walking through previous situations and then wanting to take a break, and then we took these 2 kids. So now I'm not frustrated at the kids. I'm frustrated at the foster parents, and I'm frustrated because, it's foster parents like that, and among others, that give all foster parents a bad name.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "You're supposed to be freaking caring for these kids and taking care of them." And now here we are in a situation where these kids are supposed to be depending on us for protection and care, and they didn't get it.
Hmm. And they did. They said he screamed all the time. And I was like, really? And I was judgmental. I was definitely, because I was like, there's no way. There's no way. There's absolutely a way. And he did scream all the time. He cried over everything. He was scared
Of
of
everything.
everything. He
So
was
scared.
scared of cardboard boxes,
Scared of blankets,
scared of blankets, scared of puddles of water, scared. I
TV.
mean, oh, terrified of the TV.
Wanted to watch it, but scared when it came on.
And then it got to where he would lose his mind when it got turned off. So trauma does some really crazy things to the brain. But like he said, he wasn't feeling good. So he was really, really sick. But once we got the sickness stabilized, we realized he has some severe behavior issues
because of trauma.
and genetics
Yeah.
and played a big role into that. And then
Cool.
yeah, and as we learned over the last few years, it's very much a spiritual issue. And the little girl, horrible behavior issues from just about day one, from when she was 8 months old. So
But she came to us scared of men.
terrified.
Um, she would come to me, and I was the only man that could hold her.
hmm We had one friend who,
I don't remember.
I know, I just don't know if we want to use names. I don't know if they would appreciate us using their names, but anyway, they were foster parents, and we were really close to him at the time because we were walking the same journey. And I remember that they kept her one time and he actually got to hold her. And that was a big deal for everybody because they knew her fear. They knew, and it was awful. So it was a hard, hard first year with them. And I mean, I think that this story deserves its own.
Yeah.
I think from here on, it kind of deserves its own episode, to be real honest, because there's so much involved in the rest of this story that does play into infertility. But, kind of giving away the story, we did get to adopt them. And they are now our two oldest kids, and it's Aiden and Cheyenne. So that was who those two little ones were. And, but I do believe that from you know, about that year that we had them on kind of deserves its own episode because there's so many details involved there and so many things that the Lord taught us that we could go for another 2 hours to say everything, that the Lord had done through that time. But we weren't completely healed of infertility yet. And we were slowly getting there, but we definitely still struggled through that time.
And so it wasn't long after, I don't remember the exact timing of a procedure. What year was that?
2018, I believe,
Okay.
we had gotten to the point of I it was after adoption.
So 4 years after adoption.
Yeah.
4 years after adoption. So now we had been married for 12 years. What?
12? Is that right?
Yeah,
9.
really.
Oh,
2018.
I'm sorry. 12.
So 12 years since we've been married and still walking this infertility road. And in the meantime, we adopted kids in 2014. And it comes down to she's experiencing a lot of medical issues. And I'm not going to be graphic on here, but it was a problem every day of the month, every day.
For 8 to 9 months at a time. I remember one time calling him at work. He worked at Silver Creek, and calling him and saying, "I have got to get to the hospital. I am so weak. I cannot hardly function." And I remember just trying my hardest to get the 3 kids into the truck to get them to his job because we met at Silver Creek. I met in the office, and I remember being in the
That's right.
office, and I was so weak. And I got to the hospital. I think I ended up taking myself because we didn't have anybody to keep the kids or anything. Anyway, I was anemic, and they had to do all the ultrasounds, and I just remember bleeding all over the table, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this for 8 to 9 months, 10 months at a time. And you think about having that issue for that long, like every day. that puts a toll on your marriage, that puts a toll on your parenting, that puts a toll on everything. It was awful. And so I went to the doctor not long after that, and he said, "Well, the only option I can give you is an ablation, a uterine ablation, to stop all of the issues from happening, and I have to tie your tubes because you cannot get pregnant if you have an ablation because the baby will not survive." And I was thinking, "I can't get pregnant anyway." So, like, oh my gosh. And so anyway, I kind of wanted to slap him. I'm like, "We've been trying to get pregnant for 13 years now." So, but I know what he was saying. It was just, a feeling that came up. So I was like, "Yeah, we've adopted 3 kids. I'm done." So, and he's like, "You're sure?" "I'm positive. Absolutely positive." So he went in, tied my tubes. Actually, he soldered them to make sure it didn't happen, and did a uterine ablation, and the bleeding issue was non-existent anymore. So
And that was 2018,
that was 2018.
to which I already worked somewhere else.
But it was right before.
2016, I went to work for
Oh, well, then
REI.
maybe it was in 16. Maybe my foot surgery was in 18.
So we're going to go back and say that in 2016,
Okay.
at the beginning of 2016,
So it was
it
actually
was cold.
2016 that I had the surgery.
Yes.
And so, yeah, all that.
2018 was a whole nother surgery. Has
Yes.
nothing to do with this.
No. I
So 2016, 10 years, been married, sealed the deal, no kids biological.
Yeah. And so we had to really start processing infertility differently then. And, the comments finally stopped of, maybe you'll get pregnant after you adopt. Because before it was maybe you'll get pregnant right after you have foster kids. And then that didn't happen. And so then it was like, okay, well, now that you've adopted, you'll probably get
You'll
pregnant.
probably get pregnant.
Well, we adopted. Year went by, no pregnancy. Another year went by, no pregnancy. And so those comments hurt. And then once I had the procedure, the comments stopped. And so we had to accept what that meant. And that meant no biological kids. And so that was heavy because it was something I always wanted. And I had to be okay with not having that.
So
So,
walking through the emotion of that all over again, of now it's concrete. And now there is no breaking the concrete. Like, this is unbreakable. I mean, with everything, with God, everything is possible. I'm not saying that, but
yeah, because side note, I just read about a woman who had the exact same procedure I had, the ablation, the tubes tied, and had PCOS and still got pregnant.
I'm going to ask the Lord at this point in our life, please
Please
no.
no. Please no.
We are done with
We have accepted the infertility at this
At
point,
this point in our life and our marriage, 20 years down the road, we have definitely accepted that we will not have biological kids.
and we are absolutely okay with
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah, it is okay. So, Lord, it is okay. I promise. Like, we are okay. So I just think it's crazy. And it's like this could lead into something totally different, but God can do whatever He wants to do. And you know what? He could have allowed us to get pregnant all those years. If He truly wanted us to get pregnant, He could have allowed us to get pregnant.
Yes.
And so, I take the blame and I'm like, well, maybe I should have done this, this, or this. Maybe we should have tried IVF. Maybe we should have. You know what? He still may have not allowed us to get pregnant.
Well, where does blame come from?
The enemy,
The enemy.
fear, guilt, and shame.
All from him, and it's
And
not from God.
And so, through all of that, he could have, when we asked him, he could have said, yes, you can get pregnant. But that's obviously not what he wanted because he could have allowed it
Yep.
easy. Um, but,
But this is part of our story and part of what we've walked through and what he wanted us to walk through to continue to prepare us for what we do, what we walk through now
yeah,
with these kids that we have that he gave us that are a gift from him because we prayed for them.
Yep.
And
And at this point in our story, we now have 5. So that that's it.
but we'll talk about that later.
Mhm. So
So just I know that this might resonate with some people out there, and just to let you know that that process it took us years, beyond the 10 years, to walk through the infertility, the fact that we'll never have biological kids, and now we're 20 years in, right? So, but I think that there are others out there that have walked this journey that have their own stories to share. This was our story. And I just think that part of the reason we want to share it, who we are and our story and breaking patterns is that it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It could be the beginning of something beautiful and new that God wants to do with you and your story as you walk through infertility, and you get to ask him the questions. Like, we get to ask him, God, what are you doing? And he doesn't take offense to that. Like, he wants us to engage with him, and he wants us to be, she said, confess the truth of what we're thinking and what we desire, and ask him to show us how to walk through it.
and feel free to be honest with him. He already knows. He can handle those comments that you think he can't, that you think are too, um, dirty, too rough, too nasty for him to listen to because that's not holy. We don't that's not Christian talk. No. No, absolutely not. Like, he wants your honesty. He wants that from
Because he
you.
already knows it's inside of you.
Exactly. He wants you to say it out loud so he can heal it. Because if you don't say it out loud, he's not going to heal it.
It'll take you 10 plus years to walk through it.
So,
I would.
I'm not saying he can't heal something
Sure,
that you don't
absolutely.
speak out loud, but there's freedom in saying those things out loud and saying, "I am so angry that I can't get pregnant. It hurts." Just name it. And he can accept it, and it's gonna be okay for him to hear that.
And I wish that someone would have told us this during that time. Instead, it was pray harder, or keep being consistent with whatever, reading your Bible. And I'm like, it, it was still a bunch of religion check boxes and a bunch of quoting scripture at us kind of stuff. And honestly, there was a little comfort in it, but that was not, it just wasn't what we needed. We didn't know how to be honest with God because, again, like she said, we were, I don't know, I felt like I just couldn't tell him everything I was thinking
Mhm.
because I was afraid that he was going to whack me over the head.
He would be angry at me. He
And
would look down on me and
so, whatever you're walking through when it comes to infertility, know that there are others out here that we've walked that road, and I want to encourage you to, like she said, be real and honest with God, and real and honest with your feelings and your thoughts. There's nothing you can say to him that's going to take him by surprise,
mhm,
and then listen to what he has to say back. Because the truth is that there's a purpose and a plan in it, and we didn't see it at the time. We heard people say, "Oh, I'm sure there's a purpose." I was like, "Whatever, dude." And now looking back, I'm like, "Okay, I see it now." Do I still wish that we could have had biological kids? Yeah, I do. That doesn't go away. Um, but do I know that it's for a purpose? Absolutely. I believe that if we would have had biological kids, we wouldn't have the kids we have now. I would have been like, "All right, we're good." But these kids that we have now are here for a reason, even though the story about all of this situation that we deal with kids and stuff, and our kids, they have their own issues, and we've had to walk through some really crazy, dark stuff with them. But where would they be, you know? And so just reach out. You can drop a comment or, share this episode with somebody. It might hit them a certain way. Just know that there are people out here and we're praying, and keep being a pattern breaker, because God's called us to break patterns of the world. Romans 12:2. We don't have to be like everybody else. We can look to provide comfort for other people, and kids included. And so, thanks for watching.
Yeah. KGC, Kingdom Growth Collective. This ain't religion. It's redemption. Hey, I was trapped in a system, living under a label, building my own kingdom, thought I brought food to the table, grinding for approval, looking for a title, trying to earn worth, why the lies became my idol. Enemy whispering, boy, you ain't enough, so I built a false identity, thinking I was tough. Money wasn't fixing this, success couldn't